Hi guys, welcome back to In Case of Econ Struggles. We're going to continue with my Making Macro Models Easier, or sort of the micro to macro series, where I'm going to talk about a 2-period model with savings with taxes. What this is going to do is this is going to help set up a bunch of my videos on deriving the ISLM model using a 2-period model. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Timestamps are below if you would like to jump around. So the setup in this model, we're going to stick with the endowment economy for now. So we're going to have people like Bill. Bill's going to live for 2 periods, period T and T plus 1. And this is a real economy, so we're thinking of goods and not money. So he's going to receive an amount of coconuts every period because we're still talking about coconuts. So he receives ET and ET plus 1 coconuts, or coconuts today and coconuts tomorrow. They show up in a box on his doorstep every morning. With those coconuts, he's going to consume a certain amount of coconuts in each period, CT plus 1. Now what Bill can do is Bill doesn't have to eat all of the coconuts that he gets today. Instead, what he can do is he can borrow or lend some of those coconuts out to a friend, and he's going to lend them or borrow them at interest rate R. He's also going to have to pay some taxes, so that's going to be capital T in each period. And we're going to give him a utility function of consumption in each period, which is the natural log of CT plus the natural log of CT plus 1. The goal of this video is to say, what is Bill's optimal amount of consumption today, consumption tomorrow, and savings today for tomorrow? So let's just start nice and slow by talking about the budget constraint. Let's sort of do this intertemporal budget constraint. So in period T, what's his budget constraint? Well, what is he going to get? Well, he gets the amount of coconuts on his door minus the amount of taxes that he has to pay. Again, those taxes are in coconuts, not dollars. What can he do with that income after taxes? He can eat some coconuts, and he can borrow or lend some coconuts today for tomorrow. Now, in period T plus 1, there is no period T plus 2, so we're not going to have any savings from T plus 1 into T plus 2. So we're just going to eat whatever's left. What's left? Well, it's the amount of coconuts that showed up on his box in period T plus 1, minus the taxes he had to pay on those coconuts, plus 1 plus R times whatever he saved or borrowed in the last period. Now, how are we going to add these two things together? Well, they're not in the same unit, so what we need to do is we need to take the period T plus 1 budget constraint, and we need to make that present value by multiplying it by 1 over 1 plus R. Again, I've got a whole video on present value. If that would be helpful, let me know, and I can drop that in a comment or in the description below. So once I do that T plus 1 over 1 plus R conversion, my new T plus 1 present value budget constraint, CT plus 1 over 1 plus R, ET plus 1 over 1 plus R, ST, the 1 plus R's cancel, and TT plus 1 over 1 plus R. Now they're both in the same unit because I present valued the T plus 1 budget constraint, and now I can add them together. When I add them together, my left-hand side, which I like to think of as sort of consumption, this is consumption today, the present value of consumption tomorrow. I've got a savings over here and a savings over here, so I can really just cancel these guys. On the right-hand side, I've got basically my income. So this is the present value of my lifetime income. This is the present value of the lifetime taxes, which means that the right-hand side is the present value of my lifetime net income of taxes. Now that we've got our budget constraint, we're all set to just talk about the utility maximization problem. There's a couple different ways to do that. It sort of depends on what you've learned in class. I'm going to show you both ways. So the first way is I can maximize the utility function subject to this budget constraint. One thing I can do, method 1, is to say that the MRS is the ratio of the prices. So the marginal rate of substitution is just MUCT over MUCT plus 1. So that's what I've done here. Remember, the derivative of natural log is 1 over. So that becomes CT plus 1 over CT. What is the marginal cost of CT? What is the price that I pay for eating a coconut today? Well, if I didn't eat that coconut, I could have lent it out and got 1 plus R coconuts tomorrow. So that's the price of eating a coconut today. What is the price of eating a coconut tomorrow? Well, we're just going to say it's 1. So this tells you that CT plus 1 is 1 plus R times CT. If you've done Lagrangian optimization, you're going to see that we get the same exact answer. So here's my Lagrangian here. I'm going to take first order conditions. So here's the first order condition with respect to CT. Here's the first order condition with respect to CT plus 1. Again, what do you get? You get that CT plus 1 equals 1 plus R times CT. So regardless of how you got to the fact that CT plus 1 equals 1 plus R CT, we're now ready to plug that into our budget constraint. What I'm going to say is, again, this guy here is our lifetime income, so I'm going to leave that alone for a second and really focus on replacing CT plus 1 by 1 plus R CT. So what I'm going to get is I'm going to get 2 CT, which means that CT is just 1/2 my lifetime income, and so we'll talk about this in a second. But basically, my optimal amount of consumption today is 1/2 of the present value of my lifetime income. Now, of course, what we could do is we could plug this back in. We could plug this back into CT plus 1. What we would get is we would get 1/2 times 1 plus R times the lifetime income. But what's going to be important for this is going to be really useful when we go to the 2 model ISLM. And it's also going to be useful when we talk about other macro models using a micro foundation, because this 2-period model is kind of nice. It's going to make it easier to understand some of those more advanced macro models. So if this video or these videos in general are helping you out, please like and subscribe. See you next time for another case of econ struggles.